So that's what we'll look at next. Is there's kind of two ways that you can power up your skills. The first one is just you make a skill, and in that skill, it tells Claude to use like official tools. So, well, we in this repo, I have a skill called web research, and so Claude, if you just have it do a general web search, like we did earlier in this demo, where we had it look up the top 5 Claude Code tips from the week. Those results that Claude Code gives are just notoriously unreliable. One, it's basically just running Google searches and it's just grabbing stuff from the first page. And I think you kind of know if you're just searching stuff on Google and you're clicking the first links, you have absolutely no idea if those are actually good links. I think pre-AI, the internet was really starting to feel just like so much SEO generated slop, even before there was AI slop. And if you do you really want that to be in the context window for Claude? So I would say this is another example of where people say, "Oh, you can't really trust Claude to do reliable research." Well, again, this is an area where if you just give it better tools, it can actually do better research.
Hmm.
And so in this skill, basically we have it connected to 2 tools. One is an MCP called Tavily. I'll zoom in here. Um, MCP called Tavily. So this is it's really good. It basically is just like a much more powerful, almost perplexity type of search
Yeah.
that gets much higher quality results than just a classic web search. And so here we're turning it on. It's a very generous free tier if anyone wants to try it. And then what we also have in this skill is we have it connected to something called Firecrawl, which Firecrawl basically is once you have a URL that will scrape it and get really clean markdown. And so it's a nice way where normally when you go to a website and Claude looks at it, there's a bunch of extra HTML and like maybe JavaScript and things like that. Firecrawl will just get just the sort of like raw information that the AI actually needs without all of that other stuff. And one thing that's cool about this is that Firecrawl is actually the way I have it set up is actually not an MCP. So if we look at the MCPs I have set up here, MCPs are good, but as we saw earlier when we were just looking at our context window, they eat up a lot of context just right off the bat. Like if we look at our context, we see that Tavily is taking up like a couple thousand tokens just by existing.
Yep.
Versus what you can also install are CLIs. So a CLI is kind of it's interesting. It's kind of like an older technology. It used to be the way that you would operate a computer in the beginning with a command line interface. And they kind of fell away, of course, with people wanting like better UIs for most things. But AIs are really, really good at using command line interfaces. And essentially, what they are is it's like you have a tool and then you download it onto your computer. And so it's just sitting on your machine. And then the AI can use the command line directly just through because we're basically in the CLI here. And so you have all the power of that tool just installed on your actual machine so that when the AI wants to use it, it doesn't actually have to have context just holding it in there. It can just use that CLI directly from your machine. And so what we're seeing is, originally there was MCPs, but I actually think MCPs are kind of starting to be the less preferred way over CLIs. And most tools already had CLIs and there's becoming a lot more. So for example, if you've ever tried to connect the Google Workspace MCP, I actually tried to do that on another podcast live, and it's such a hassle. But there's actually a Google Workspace CLI, and that's what, for example, OpenClaw uses. So it's just way more reliable than using an MCP because it's just on the machine and it's easy for the Claude to figure out how to use it. And I think what we're going to see over the next year is just a lot more CLI tools because AI are so good at using them.
Yeah, Andre Carpathy said it himself, like, you should prefer a CLI connection, and I think the hierarchy is basically MCP at the bottom because it eats up so much context, then API, CLI at the top, and funny enough, CLI is basically just usually a wrapper on top of the API, but agents like to work with CLIs.
Yeah, exactly. The other CLIs I would say are just awesome. Um, GitHub CLI, I would say basically mandatory. If you're like doing anything with GitHub, the CLI Claude is just aggressively competent at the GitHub CLI. It's amazing. And the Vercel CLI is another really good one where if you want to deploy your app, then it can check the logs, it can configure your environment variables. Those two, if you're like doing any vibe coding, if you have the GitHub CLI and the Vercel CLI, so much easier. It's so much more powerful.
I think this is one of the most underrated hacks. If you take anything away from this episode, stop using MCPs, start using CLIs.
Yeah, and it just literally, if you just say, "Hey, Claude, does the CLI for this exist?" More often than you'd probably guess, the answer is yes. And here what and just download that and use that because it's just so powerful. So what I did is I went ahead and ran our web research, which uses Tavily to find stuff, and then Firecrawl to kind of scrape the pages. And that's just a this is again a really good way to shore up that web search is not that good for AI, but if you give it access to these tools, it can be way more powerful.
Here's the dirty secret about prototyping. You spend 2 weeks building a prototype, you validate your assumptions. Engineering loves the direction. Then what happens? You throw the whole thing away. Bolt changes this completely. When you prototype in Bolt, you're not building throwaway mockup. You're building real front-end code that integrates with your existing design system. So when you hand it to engineering, they don't throw it away. They ship on top of what you've built. I use Bolt every single day. I host my land PM job cohort on it. And honestly, I'm up till 2 a.m. some days just vibing in the tool, having fun, and building. That's when you know a product is good. When you're using it past midnight, not because you need to, but because you want to. Check out Bolt at bolt.new/Akash. That's bolt.new/AAKASH. Link in the show notes. Today's episode is brought to you by Amplitude. Replays of mobile user engagement are critical to building better products and experiences. But many session replay tools don't capture the full picture. Some tools take screenshots every second, leading to choppy replays and high storage costs from enormous capture sizes. Others use wireframes, but key moments go missing, creating gaps in your understanding. Neither approach gives you a truly mobile experience. Amplitude does things differently. Their mobile replays capture the full experience. Every tap, every scroll, and every gesture, with no lag and no performance hit. It's the most accurate way to understand mobile behavior. See the full story with Amplitude. I hope you enjoyed that short clip. You can check out the full episode here.